Hi guys, and welcome to the third episode of Team Talk. Today, I'm doing the podcast with Frim. So
Evening.
there you go. And today's podcast is going to be on the teams that we think are going to be relegated from the Premier League this season, and we'll be going through a host of clubs situated around the bottom of the Premier League and giving them a ranking on the likelihood of whether they're going to go down this season. And really just seeing how they perform so far this season, and then at the end giving our sort of predictions for which three teams are going to go down. So
Why do you think West Ham's going to go down?
they're absolutely terrible. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bottle the whole second half of the season.
Yeah, bottom three.
After today's performance anyway. But
That's not me.
yeah, we'll keep that one quiet for certain reasons. So anyway, starting with the bottom of the league, that's probably the best place to start when we're talking about relegation. We have Sheffield United. I'm sure you've looked into Sheffield United's performances a bit this season. Frim, have you got anything you want to say on them?
Yeah, there's not. Hasn't been very promising, to be honest. When you look at their team, they haven't really. They've made a few signings since last season. I think that's their main issue. Last season they were solidly defensively, but then they wouldn't score loads, but because they were so good defensively, they'd get a few goals and then they'd get a few wins. But if you look at this season, they've only got one clean sheet so far, which when you think just over halfway, that's nowhere near good enough. And then they've only scored 12 goals. So where they brought in, obviously, Brewster, he's not hit the road run, and they've brought in a few signings. I just think all of them just haven't pieced together. Like where Villa brought in signings, and their ones from last season are now playing well, and their new ones are now playing well. It seems the opposite from Sheffield United. They made a few signings last season, they've done all right, and then they've brought in like Ampadu. I think they brought him in, and he's not bad, but don't know, he's still young. Brewster's looked decent, but he's not getting the minutes. And yeah, they're just not scoring, but then they're also not conceding. So I just think it's very, very likely. I think that they will go down.
Yeah,
What do you agreeing with that, or?
Yeah, I think when I look at Sheffield United, I kind of see a team virtually full of championship level players who
Yeah,
last season performed so well as a team, like as a unit, but aren't really.
seemed like it was sort of because they got promoted, wasn't it? It was sort of the hype of coming up.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately with like sort of a lot of teams, it happens with a lot of teams. That, like you said, the hype and the fight all being together sort of pulls you through certain games, gets you draws rather than losses, and sneak a few wins. But this season, I think, unfortunately, there's only so long that relying on like a strike partnership of like David McGoldrick and Ollie McBurney, who I don't think are necessarily bad players, but they're sort of players that are never going to score any more than sort of 5 league goals in a season. And that's always sort of a bad recipe when it comes to trying to stay in the Premier League.
I think it was getting Brewster was sort of the next step, wasn't it? I think for the attack, but I don't think he suits their style of play.
No, and it never really developed. I mean, they want the sort of play. It really, what they should have done. I know it's a lot more money, but they kind of needed the player like Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa, because they need that sort of player who's a bit like McGoldrick, who's strong, holds the ball up, battles with defenders, but they actually need someone who can actually finish as well.
Yeah.
And McGoldrick
with a striker instinct,
isn't that sort of. He's good at holding the ball up, but then it's that thing if you then need someone who, like, it's almost like you can't have two McGoldricks up front and expect to get a lot of points.
I quite like. I do like Oliver Burke, but McGoldrick, I think he's quite greedy at times.
Yeah.
That he doesn't. He opts for the shot when there might be an easier pass, or when it's not the like Salah's greedy, but he might be closer to the goal. I feel like McGoldrick sometimes greedy, but he'd be like really far out, and then he'd just take the shot, or he'd hit the wrong pass or something.
Yeah, and I think as well with someone like Salah, when being greedy is fine if you're good enough to make your own chances, whereas McGoldrick's
Yeah,
very poor in like he's good at like getting maybe in the right position, but he's not good at making his own chances to the point where he can
yeah,
take shots for fun and not expect to be like sort of
yeah.
losing
He
his
only
team
gets
points.
they only get a limited amount of chances,
Yeah.
and then if he's like using a few of those to shoot from far out, or rather than making that extra pass where someone else might be in a better position to shoot, it's sort of wasteful.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I think as well, looking at their sort of expected goals, to be fair to them, they are actually quite unlucky based on
Yeah,
how many goals they should score and how many goals they should concede. I think their by expected goals this season, they should be closer to 20 points as opposed to the 8 points they're
yeah,
on, which would put them sort of a lot in a lot of better position than they are currently.
yeah. I think they have been unlucky. Like the start of the season, when you look at one thing that I can sort of praise them for, although it's you never really want to praise a loss, but when they do lose, it's only like 1-0 or 2-1. It's rarely like they rarely get a thumping. Like against City at the weekend, like losing 1-0 to City, and then if you look at the actual goal, it was a poor goal to concede.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably sort of their lifeline to hold on is they although they're only on 8 points, they're not coming out of every week losing 3-0, losing 4-0. That it's sort of in a weird way a respectable loss. Would you say that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're the sort of team who, if say they'd picked up a few more wins against some of the teams around them, they would
Yeah,
actually be in a really good position because their goal difference would be really good. But because they're actually
yeah,
struggling against the teams around them as well, that it obviously doesn't really make enough of a difference. But like you said, in like if you were sort of in that battle for 18th or 17th, have conceding only one goal to Man City might be the difference between you like staying up or not.
yeah. Well, you think of last season goal. I think when West Ham were down the bottom, that's what they were sort of clinging on for a bit was we might not get any more wins or a few draws or whatever, but our goal difference is considerably better than the other teams around us.
Yeah, so that's always an advantage.
Yeah,
I think that's a decent amount on Sheffield United. Quite good detail, to be fair. So, if you were sort of like to give them that rating out of 10 on their sort of the
that
likeliness
go
of them
down.
going down, yeah,
I would give it 10 to be honest.
yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I
I
don't,
think
I
the
don't think they've got
position,
any hope.
I think the position they're in at the moment, looking at the fact that they're 13 points already off 17th, and although
Yeah,
they've won against United recently, and obviously, only a few wins could instantly put them back in that fight. It's just that thing of, do I think that's
yeah.
going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen.
Realistically, I'm with you. I don't think it will, to be honest.
No, that's fair enough. I think unfortunately for them, the championship beckons, but you never know. If they keep a lot of the players, which they probably could, then they might come
Yeah,
straight back up again. So,
yeah.
um,
Will be interesting to see who they lose. Obviously, Bruce is signing for quite a lot, but
I think they might keep him because he's probably not a lot. He's probably not on a lot of wages, and it's a good sort of move for him to score like 20 plus goals next season and come back into the league
and
as a
then
better
come
player.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than sticking because no one in the top mm,
I don't think anyone would want him in the Prem.
top 10. Yeah,
Not
after this season, but
not even because he's a bad player, just because he hasn't done enough to prove it to
proved
anyone.
himself. Yeah. Should we? Who's next?
West
West Brom.
Brom, yeah, West Brom in 19th. Who sort of, if I were to sort of start on them, I mean, I think really they almost look worse than Sheffield United do. I just think that they've been able to sort of maybe steadily. If you look at the table anyway, all they've done is drawn more games than Sheffield United.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what. Well, they're sometimes in a weird position. 'Cause if you think back to sometimes they play really well. If you think back to Chelsea, they were 3-0 up, weren't they?
yeah,
And they just seem to not have the strength to keep a lead.
yeah,
Same against Fulham at the weekend when they went 2-1 up against Fulham. They sort of don't have that ability to keep that lead.
yeah. I
But
just
I agree with you where they're similar to Sheffield United because they've only got 2 clean sheets as well, which is obviously very, very poor. But then their goals that they've scored is 17, so only 5 better than Sheffield United. But then against them's 50, which is 16 worse than Sheffield United. So it seems like they're not scoring much, but they're conceding considerably more, which I think is going to be their massive downfall.
Yeah, because when they seem to lose like 5-4. Like Arsenal beat them 4-0, City
City
beat
beat
them
them 5-0,
5-0,
wasn't it?
Leeds beat them
Yeah.
5-0. It's not like they're the sort of things that you said where if they obviously they're still quite far behind, but if they were to sort of get back to that point of maybe staying up, there's so many. Their
Yeah.
goal difference is literally like
They would have to stay
20.
up by points, won't they?
Yeah, like they're
Rather than
21 goals are worse off than Fulham, who are 18th, and everyone else is
yeah,
either sort of around that or lower. So West Brom, like they're not going to be able to catch up on goals, goal difference. It's going to have to be on points, and that obviously when you're that low down in the table, sometimes draws are all you can really get, and
well, yeah.
it's not good enough for them really at the moment.
I think they have, weirdly though, I do quite like a few of their players. I think like Pereira is a very good player. You've got Conor Gallagher on the loan from Chelsea. I think they're both very good players. So they have got some talent in midfield that midfield and up top. I think that could change it.
Yeah,
But then I think similar to Sheffield United, I think some of their signings haven't sort of lived up to it. So Ivanovic, he signed and he was meant to sort of give them that strength and defence. Dean Garner, who West Ham are kicking themselves over, I think it's looking like he's probably a championship player.
yeah, he hasn't
I
done
think
much.
no, especially for his price tag as well. You brought him in thinking he's going to be this really good player in the Prem, and he's not even starting every game, is he?
I don't think so.
I think at the start of the season he was, and then it looks like they've sort of given not given up on him because he still does play, but it's not like he's one of their main attackers.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a Brewster type player where they'll probably go down as well, and he'll probably stay and still be their best player next season. I
Yeah, because he
think.
was very good in the Championship, wasn't
Yeah, I think one of the things for West Brom that I kind of feel bad for them for, but like it's just one of those sort of things in football is the fact that their two best players last season, or I think Mitrovic. Does Mitrovic play for West Brom? Was it for Fulham?
he? He was Fulham, wasn't
I
he?
think okay, it's for Fulham then, but ignore that.
He's
But
Fulham now, and he was a few seasons ago.
yeah, so with West Brom last season, their sort of two best players, I guess, were like sort of Dean Garner and Pereira, who were both on loan at West Brom last season. So to obviously keep those players at the level that they were at last season, they had to pay 30 odd million to get both of those two in.
Yeah.
But that then means that that's like the majority, or if not all of their transfer budget spent on two players they
Yeah,
already had last season, so they couldn't improve.
I think they did actually they brought those in, didn't they? But they didn't.
Yeah,
It wasn't like they had them and they brought in extra talent.
no,
So it wasn't like it wasn't really from moving up to the Championship to the Prem. It wasn't really
enough.
many additions.
Yeah, I just think it was too. It's not that it's their fault because again they can't just go and spend like 70, 80 million, but it's just the
Yeah,
fact that they didn't improve really on their starting 11,
yeah,
like enough to then be really pushing to
yeah. For
actually.
that jump,
Yeah, I
I
think
just think
carry on.
the only thing I think going for them is I think they're like I say Pereira, Gallagher. I think they have got some talent, and sometimes they do perform and play quite nice football. Like against putting 3 goals by Chelsea just sort of proves the point that they have got the players there. But yeah, it's just defensively I think they're very weak.
No, I completely I'd have to agree with that. Unfortunately, with West Brom, I think they're in that same sort of position as Sheffield United now. I wasn't necessarily sure at the start. I did always kind of think they were going to go down, but I think
Yeah,
I'm
the
kind of
start I
certain
was
now.
sort of certain,
I think
after the
just
first 5-10 games or whatever.
I think another few sort of stats that sort of really put the nail in the coffin is the fact that they're only averaging like sort of 7.5 shots a game across the season, which is the lowest in the league. And sort of by expected goals and expected points, they should be last by like 8 or 9 points. So they're not even like unlucky. They're just not very good.
Yeah.
So I think realistically,
So that's what you think. If they're even, did you say 7.5 goals? Was it?
no, it was
If they're only averaging
averaging
that, then you'd think, well, surely then it means.
technical difficulties.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
just think if you were saying they were only averaging 7.5 shots a game, then you should think, oh, does that where Sheffield United ain't scoring or getting many shots, but they're solidly better defensively. So you think, oh, are West Brom better defensively then? But they're not. So it's like you sort of think, where is their strength? I'll say their keeper is very good. Is it Sam Johnston?
yeah. I think they've got quite a good few young players. It's just that thing that they're not just at the level for Premier League at the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd probably. What would you give them staying up? What would you rank them?
I think based on their recent form, I think it would probably be unfair to not give them a 10. But I think because there are a few points closer to potentially getting there, and there's still quite a lot of games left, I'd say a 9 is probably.
I would. I think I'd probably give them an 8. I'd say
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I
only
mean,
because
carry on.
I think they are sort of likely to go down, but they do. I think they do have decent players, and they may have just a bit of luck on their side.
I think the fact that they're that many points closer than Sheffield United are, which I know it's not loads, but it's enough that it's a sizable
Yeah,
difference in a relegation battle. That they've definitely got a lot. They have got a bit more of a chance, and there's so many games left that you never know. There's always that chance that
it's
they could
just
just turn it around.
unpredictable some of the results as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think an
Um,
eight's fine.
yeah. So should we move on to
Yeah,
the
so
what are we 8 and what did you give?
I gave a 9 just because of recent form.
Yeah,
So the next team up, I think I've already mentioned them, but Fulham, who
Fulham.
do have played a game less than the two teams below them, sitting on 14 points. I mean, I haven't necessarily gone too deep into Fulham because I do think that they're the sort of team that have really gone for it this season. I think they've been a bit unlucky in some of their results. Maybe should have won a few more
Definitely.
games. And some of the quality of their players probably, to me, says that they should maybe be a few places higher.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, they are where they are, and they are still like a couple points out, sort of behind the 17th place, Brighton.
yeah. It's tricky because I looked at some of their stats and Mitrovic hasn't been playing that much, and he was when they were up. Was it 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, I think 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, he was arguably one of their best players. Like really good in the air, just overall just really solid. And then he doesn't really suit their style as much now, I feel, because they're quite fast paced and he's not very quick.
Yeah.
But then when he does play, you look at their crosses, they're 14th in crosses. They've only made 356 crosses. And when you actually look at some of their crosses, they're very poor. They're
Yeah,
just whack it in the air, or there's no real quality. And so it's not really to his advantage. So I feel that's partly why they're sort of down there, because they're playing him, they're doing the right thing, putting the crosses in, but then they haven't got the quality to sort of give him a good cross so that he can actually do something with it.
yeah, no. I think sometimes as well, unfortunately, with when you're one of those teams near the bottom where you've just been promoted, you need to kind of play to the strengths of your best players, even if it's not exactly how you want
Yeah.
to play. And that's maybe where they're sort of
So
faltering a little bit.
he's like the target man, and they need to play to the strength with getting good balls into the box, but it just doesn't seem like they're doing that at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's where you not necessarily worry for them. I just think maybe they're making it a bit too hard for themselves when it could be maybe a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
I feel like they have one thing's good about them. I feel like the additions they've made to the team have been quite good. Like Lockman and well, Loftus Cheek's been injured quite a bit, but now he's back. If you actually watch him and Lockman, I think they're both very good players and they're playing well. So I feel like they've actually where you said earlier West Brom, they just signed players they already had and they didn't really make any additions. Fulham have made additions
Yeah.
and they've made good additions. I feel like.
They signed the Areola from PSG, which is a brilliant sign. I mean,
Yeah,
again,
he's been really well. Like against Brighton, he basically won them that point. I felt.
yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. Sometimes, although they're still, you'd say, oh, they're still down there. How good can he be? It's like there's certain games and certain points that these sort of players do win you, and these
Yeah,
additions do win you. Like and players like him, like you said before, Lookman, he's scored some great goals, and they were quite unlucky at the start of the season because I think they missed like 4 penalties in a row, didn't they? I think it was Fulham.
there was one point where they were missing those, and obviously Lookman's won against West Ham, which would have got them like a point, wouldn't it? Because that was
Yeah.
last kick. So they have been unfortunate. I feel like.
So
And
I
then
think,
obviously Chelsea's game the other week, they were very good in that game, I thought. And then I personally didn't think it was a red card on. I thought Aspilicueta made quite a lot of it, but then obviously that's another 3 points gone. That if they kept 11 men on the pitch, you think, oh, would they have won that? And then we're
yeah,
sort of they're closer to being out of the relegation zone.
no, I think that's a good point. I think with Fulham, I think they're the sort of team that if they can escape the drop this season, they maybe not to the same level, but they could sort of make a quite a good big jump, a bit like an Aston Villa next
Yeah.
season. Because if they, I mean, I don't know if they will, but
Well, I don't know, because I feel like Aston Villa, although they were down the bottom last year, they made their signings they made permanently. While Fulham, they're down the bottom this year, and if they stay up, like Lockman and well Loftus Cheeks, but definitely on loan. Lockman is as well, isn't
I think so. I'm thinking about being
he?
on loan
Yeah.
from Leipzig, but then it's that
No,
thing of
they would either go back to their parent club or they would sign permanently. So it'd be like, can they afford to then sign other players?
yeah. I think the ones that could be interesting is because obviously with someone like Loftus Cheek, I think he's a very good player, but it's whether he can sort of keep his fitness, and it might be that what Fulham might be better off doing is trying to find someone who might be a bit cheaper, but kind of sort of
Yeah,
offers the same role that Loftus Cheek does. Um,
yeah,
maybe from like because you got like for example, like I know like I done the episode on him the other day, but Sushek at West Ham cost them like 10 million, and he's such a
but
sort of
and he plays that
good
every
player.
game, doesn't
And I'm sure Fulham could start, find someone who can offer maybe not the full level of Loftus Cheek, but like 80%, 90% of his level, but he can play every single game without
Yeah,
picking
he'll
up
be
any
there every
injuries.
game.
But I think like Lookman I'd sign if I were Fulham permanently. I'd try and get that Areola as well permanently if they can as well and go from there.
Yeah,
But I mean, if I was to give them a sort of ranking out of 10, I mean, I know that at the moment I can give Brighton win the game at the moment against Tottenham, and
yeah,
then they'll be 7 points behind. But I still think that obviously they have got a game in hand on that.
yeah,
That I'd probably give their chances maybe a 6, just because I feel like there's so many games left, and I know that I feel like they've got.
yeah,
I mean, I'd only give them a 6 because of the position they're in now.
yeah,
But I think that if they could get another win or in the next few games, then I can see them sort of maybe not going on a run, but just really closing that gap and sort of joining that next pack and
yeah.
sort of moving away from the bottom two.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything you're saying, I agree. I'd give a 6 or a 7, I think. I'm leaning slightly more to 7 just because, don't know, I don't feel they have as much depth as some of the other teams.
Yeah, I
But
definitely agree with that.
yeah,
No, I
like,
think
yeah, 6 or 7, I'd probably pushing towards 7. But
no,
then,
yeah, I
like
mean
you
that's
say, I
fine.
think depending, they have been unfortunate in some of the games. So if they if they have a few more games and then I don't know, they are quite fortunate, VAR calls or something, then they could easily, I feel like, find themselves out of the drop zone.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you mean. At the moment, it's kind of hard to tell with them because they could easily lose all the rest of their games, or they could win quite a
Yeah,
few. It just depends on how some of their like if Loftus-Cheek's fit for most of their games, who knows? They could
yeah.
do
I
quite
feel like
well.
they're like a proper team that everyone sort of works together as well.
Yeah,
So if they do get 1 or 2 wins and then they're all sort of fighting for the team, they are more likely than Sheffield United and West Brom.
yeah, no, I can agree with you on that. I think if we move on to the next team, which who are currently playing right now against Tottenham, which is Brighton. Um, I think really going into speaking about them, it's quite sort of surprising really that they're even in this
Yeah,
conversation. Because
100%.
I mean, even watching some of their game before we started doing this, they're such a sort of exciting team to watch that it just almost confuses you sometimes that they aren't that they're even in this conversation.
Higher
That
up, yeah.
I mean, looking at one stat that always surprises me of Brighton is the fact that by sort of their expected points, they're actually 14 points worse off than on expected
Are they?
points. So
Yeah,
they're currently on before this game that they're in now anyway. They were on 18 points when expected goals and sort of goals conceded, they should have been on 32 points, which in the sort of whole scheme of
yeah,
expected points, that would only put them 2 points behind Man United. So, whereas
yeah.
obviously
Because I did see, God,
in actual sort of so in essence they should only be 2 points behind Man United based on expected goals, but they're actually
yeah,
22 points, and that just kind of
are
shows
they?
how the sort of quality of sort of management and the teamwork, but the lack of quality is sort of
Well, at the
kept
end,
in
yeah. Because I did
them.
see that they were getting the chances, but just not converting them.
Yeah,
But
and I
then,
think
what makes me think that where you're saying they should be up there, I feel like Neil Maupay's been a big part in that. I don't feel like he's been as in form as he normally is. But then the last 4 games he started, he's got 3 goals. So I feel like all it could take is for him to get back into form, and then they've got 5 clean sheets, and it's not really good, but it's not as bad as some of the other teams. So I feel like if he finds his form and then the defence improves slightly more, it's easily capable also.
yeah, I mean I think so. You've got Maupay, who's not got the worst record to be fair. I think he's got in the league this season 15 games or 18 games and 7
Yeah,
goals. But I think unfortunately for them is that it's almost like it seems they get all these chances, but there's no one, maybe apart from
not
even with
clinical.
him, but
Yeah,
no one's really clinical enough for them so that they end up having all these chances and then they'll go and lose to like a one-off counter attack, and
yeah.
you're kind of sitting there scratching your head thinking, how's that even happened?
That was yeah. I
Um,
think I feel like part of their main issue this season's injuries.
yeah,
They've made the signings they've made, I'd say, is good. Like Welbeck, Lamptey, and Lallana. When you look at them on paper, you'll say they're all great signings for Brighton. And to be fair, Lamptey and Welbeck, when they first started, they were very good.
yeah,
But then Lallana comes on sometimes, goes off injured after 10 minutes. He done that a few weeks back. Welbeck's just really injury prone. Lamptey's good, but he misses he tends to miss the odd game when he's playing regularly. But he's been out for a while. I think it's
yeah,
a groin injury, so I feel like they've been a bit unfortunate where their signings that they've made have all been injured, and then they've like Glenn Murray's out on loan at Watford, and they've just not got the depth either.
yeah. I think
Because
they're
then
the sort
they
of team who I think probably that in sort of the next evolution of Fulham, where if they were able to maybe have a little bit of a bigger budget and sign a few extra players with with sort of the quality of the way they actually play, if they were to improve a few players, they might actually be a really sort of top level
yeah
team. But
Yeah.
it's always going to be hard, sort of, when like your fullbacks are both like sort of centre backs who are sort of filling in gaps
Yeah.
and things like that. And I
I
think,
think
like you said,
especially if some of their players, obviously Basuma, Lamptey, whether they stay or go, would depend massively upon that. I think
yeah, that's also true. I
that
mean, it's
at the
always
moment
hard.
they look too good for Brighton.
Yeah, I think, especially not that I don't think that Lamptey's as good, but I think because he's just signed a new contract, I think someone like Basuma, for example, will probably get sold in the summer just because of how much
Yeah,
money that they'll be able to get for him.
how much money? And yeah, he's slightly older as well, isn't he?
I think, if I'm being honest, I think they really shouldn't go down, but because of the
No,
position they're in, they're sort of right in this sort of
yeah.
relegation
The
battle.
one thing that did sort of amaze me when I was watching the Brighton Spurs game is they've got no home wins so far,
Really, I didn't even
which
notice that.
they're the only. I think there's like in the Prem Championship and whatever. There's a few teams on one, like Sheffield United's on one. I think Millwall was on one, but they're the only one without any home wins, and that just I don't know. I just
Baffling.
was so shocked when I saw it was them because it doesn't. Although they're low down, it doesn't seem like you straight away go, yeah, Brighton's having a rubbish season. But then to not have any home wins
Yeah, I
sort
think
of
it's
just
a bit.
emphasises how bad they're doing.
Yeah, I think, like you said, that's quite a damning stat, really. With the whole not winning or winning at home, I think based on sort of it's almost like in my heart, I'd give them a 0 out of 10 for the chances of going down by just watching them play. They're way too exciting for that. But
Yeah,
I think being sensible, I think just again because of the points difference between them and Fulham, I'd say that I'd give them probably 5 out of 10, just because they're
yeah.
the sort of one team that like is closest to the relegation
I
teams.
think they're definitely the one that's an established or been in the Prem for at least a few years that are most likely to go down. I'd say.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think so out of 10, what would you give Brighton's chances of
I
going down?
was probably five as well. I say it's 5 or 6, but I think probably five, just because although they have got good players, I just think they've got a lot of players that are injury prone and they're just not performing. They're not
No,
clinical, like you say. So I
yeah,
think that could be their sort of biggest weakness.
yeah, that's fair enough. Maybe next season if they do stay
And
up.
they just sold Matt Ryan, haven't they? And I think he was very good for them.
Yeah, that's true. Um, so
He's obviously a world class team, so I can't blame him, to be honest.
yeah, I mean, I can't blame him for wanting to sort of take a massive step up in his career. Um, so anyway, in 16th place we have Burnley,
Burnley,
who I think realistically, not that you should ever have any favourites, but I think they're definitely the least interesting team out of the teams that are like not in the bottom three. If you were
yeah,
to pick a random game to watch, I mean, they don't score many goals.
or
I
good
think
goal.
no, they're usually sort of like smash and grab type goals. I think they've scored.
Yeah,
They've only scored 13 goals, which I think is like joint second bottom, or maybe just second from bottom.
yeah,
But because they have like maybe world class obviously is too far, but like such a excellent goalkeeper and
yeah.
some good defenders that
Well, the
it,
centre backs, yeah.
yeah, they've somehow managed to sort of get 7 clean sheets, which I think is like within sort
I
of the
think
top six
was
in the league.
that was the stat I was surprised on, the sixth in the league, considering how low down they are or were at the start of the season. To then be sixth in the table for clean sheets,
I just think
just sort of. I think it was because at the start of the season, if you look, I think Tarkowski and me were both injured, and me was injured for quite a while.
yeah,
And then I think that's sort of at the start. That's why you're sort of like they could potentially go down because where they don't score many goals or they're not very exciting. To then have both their centre backs out, their first 8 games they only got 2 points. So then you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, normally they're very solid defensively, but they're not very good at attacking. But if they're not very good at attacking, and then suddenly you take their two centre backs out, it's like, what
That's
sort
it,
of do
sort
they
of
have
thing.
left going for them?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, that when you said at the start or just a second ago that they only had 2 points from the first 8 games, it's
Yeah,
understandable that you start thinking, okay, well, they're going to go down unless these two centre backs come in quickly
come
because,
back. Yeah,
and they did, and they have come back, and now they're on. I know it's not massive, but they're on 22 points now after 20 games, which again,
yeah.
it's not like loads of points, but it's a big jump from where they
Compared
were.
to definitely.
And if they win their game in hand and they jump past Newcastle and Wolves, who are
Yeah,
above them and only
a
1 point
point behind
behind
Palace, weren't they?
Palace. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
and
like
then you
you
start to
said,
think, oh, that's a decent season for Burnley.
yeah, I just think their sort of game plan has always been defend really really well and then hope that your strikers nick sort of 5 to 10
Oh,
goals a season
Liverpool was
each.
prime example, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Last weekend.
and if they'd done it against us as well, they would when
Yeah,
Arsenal played them because they were rubbish. But we
I,
got a silly red
I can't.
card. Aubameyang
There
scored
was
no goal.
there was a stat lately. I can't remember if it was home or away goals, but they'd only scored. It was in like the last 5-10 games or whatever. They'd only scored 2 goals. I can't remember if it was a home or away, but one of those was the Aubameyang own goal.
Yeah,
Which,
I think that might be. I think we were at home, so it must have been away goals.
yeah,
They've only scored 2, but that's what I mean. They haven't really got much going forward, but they've got a very certified game plan that just works every time,
yeah,
and I think that's why.
they've got McNeil back obviously now as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they're the sort of team who almost like no right to keep staying up, but they just do because they're so
They're
well
sort of like
drilled
fighters, aren't
defensively.
they?
Yeah,
They're just defensively they're well drilled. They're sort of all fight for each other, and then obviously having Pope in goal as well was a massive boost. But to me, he should be probably England's number one.
oh,
So you think,
I think it should be unarguable. I mean, if Henderson played for Man United more, then maybe that would be the argument. But Pickford
yeah,
shouldn't be like
no, I
maybe third
think
choice, but
Ramsdale and I'd put Ramsdale and Pope both ahead of him.
yeah, I think to be honest with you,
But
I don't want to kill his confidence, but I just think Pickford just shouldn't be in the squad at the moment. He doesn't deserve it, so why should he be in there? It's England. It's
yeah,
not.
they say because it's hard because they say Pickford's like we want to play at the back, and he is really good with his feet. But then to me, a keeper, look at Pope's
Hands
shot
first,
stopping,
kick second.
and yeah, that's like number one to be able to stop a shot for a goalkeeper rather than play with your feet.
Yeah.
That's like a bonus, I would say.
No, that makes complete sense. I think the interesting thing for Burnley will be assuming that this summer I think someone should sign Nick Pope because he's clearly
Yeah,
one of the best goalkeepers in the league. You'd think that
yeah,
they might maybe struggle next year. I don't know, but for this season, I think I'll probably give them a 4 out of 10 because they've already got themselves in a good position and they're probably going to sort of sneak a few wins, a few draws here and there for the rest of the
yeah,
season. So I'll probably give them probably a 4 out of 10 for chances of going down.
yeah. I'm gonna go for it. And I'm gonna give them a 0. To be honest,
I
when I
think that
look at they've got lost. If you sort of look at the games they've played, first 8 games they've got 2 points. Next 13 games they've got 20 points. So you'd think I know it's sort of all ifs and whatever, but if you say those first 8 games, if they had Tarkowski and me,
yeah.
they could have got say if they instead of 2 points they got 10 points, then they're sort of nowhere near this. So I just think from getting 20 points to their last 13 games, they're gonna pick up a few more here and there. They're more likely to pick up wins and draws than all the other teams. So yeah, I would give them 0 to be honest.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think like if they were in the bottom 3, then maybe you'd be a bit more questioned, but because they're already out of
Yeah,
it and they're gonna get
they're
more
out of it
clean
with a game
sheets. Yeah.
game in hand as well, aren't they?
So the next team, which I think is an interesting one, is Newcastle. I think I think personally with Newcastle, like, as a team, they're actually quite bad as a team, and like maybe although they're only 15th, maybe should be even lower in the table than they
Lower,
actually
yeah.
are. But I think, and the only thing I actually even wrote down under sort of Newcastle was the fact that they have Callum Wilson, who I think maybe obviously in terms of like every
I
player in the
think you
Prem,
got the same stat as me.
yeah, every player in the Prem you can't put him that high up because some players have had amazing seasons, but
Yeah,
in terms of the importance to a team, I think he might be at least top 5 in the league because 10 goals and 4 assists in a team that sort of doesn't create anything, barely
yeah.
scores, can't sort of defend, and he's sort of dragging them through games, somehow nicking them wins. It seems like every other
Yeah,
week.
I really like him as well because his work rate when they beat Everton at the weekend, he was just unbelievable. Like, take the goals away, take the assists away. His work rate is just unbelievable. I'd say.
That's the thing. A player who gives you like work rate, but then in half a season scores you 10 goals and gets you four assists in a team that. And bear in mind, I don't think he's even played every game either. I think he's
No,
been injured a few games. I think
yeah,
he's doing it all himself. And I think if they didn't have him, or he was to get injured tomorrow for the rest of the season,
then yeah, because
I'd
they've got Almiron and who's the other one up top?
Joelinton,
Joelinton,
yeah,
but he's nowhere near
they're just not that level.
Wilson's
Yeah,
standard.
and that's the scary thing for Newcastle is I think, although yeah, some of their other players are good. Like I do really like players like Saint Maximin,
Yeah,
and they've got a few sort of good defenders as well, like Is it Joe Lewis? I can't remember.
Jamal
Lewis,
Lewis,
Jamal
yeah,
Lewis,
the one
yeah.
from Norwich, yeah, yeah.
Um, but the fact that it seems like everything it's either Callum Wilson or bust. They either lose or Callum Wilson has a good game and they don't lose.
Don't lose. Yeah, it's
Um,
too reliant. I think the thing they're going for him though is they've got at Bournemouth when Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser were
yeah,
sort of bouncing like the same with Kane and Son. They were sort of bouncing off each other. And I think now Steve Bruce has said that he's trying to basically get Saint Maximum and Fraser both in the team.
yeah,
And now that Fraser's back and he's fit, I think if he gets in the team, I think Wilson's going to do even better with Fraser there.
yeah. I mean, that's a good point actually. And he hasn't played much, has he, Fraser, this season either? So
No, I think he has been injured, hasn't he? I think he's been injured or unfit.
yeah, or probably COVID, because he could have had loads of different things.
Yeah, so he just hasn't really played much, which is quite evident, I think. But having him back's a massive sort of boost for Wilson, who's already on 10 goals.
Yeah,
I
no, that's
think
fair
one
enough.
one thing that they sort of I thought at the weekend, they'll be all right because Lascelles is back, but he's back out injured again now. I think they really do miss him.
Yeah,
Although they have only conceded 34, they've scored 21 and conceded 34, so it's not like it's like disastrous. But I just think he's obviously their captain, ain't he? He's like,
I just think sometimes when they lose badly. And I think that's like
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah, they don't even like their performance.
yeah, and I think sometimes it's their goal difference. I mean, it's not actually that bad at the moment, but if it
What
seems
is
like
it?
it's
It's
only minus
13.
13, but
Yeah,
it's the fact that
it's
I
not as
feel
good
like
as you think for them.
no, but I think because of again where their position is at the moment, they're in a decent sort of spot. I can only sort of give them again like a 4 out of 10, sort of similar to Burnley. I think
Yeah,
maybe I might be inclined maybe to give a 5 just because I think there's a higher chance in there that they could completely sort of implode if like say Callum Wilson was to
yeah,
get injured.
yeah. I think I'd probably personally give them a 2 or 3. I'll say because I don't feel. I think they are playing really bad. I think there's a lot. The players aren't good enough. There's a lot going on at the club, but I think if you still compare them to the other players, they're not. They're not worse than Sheffield United.
No,
West
definitely.
Brom and Fulham, even Brighton, I don't think they're as bad as those 3.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah,
Because they do have Wilson, I think Wilson and Fraser coming back, say maximum. Almiron, who, although he doesn't chip in with goals, his just work rate's just unbelievable. So I think I'd have to give him a 2 or 3.
No, that's fair. I mean,
Probably, I'm going to go with 2. I'll go with 2.
yeah, no. I think the last team we'll talk about just briefly because I don't think there's any chance of them going down. But I have to say it just because of their points tally being so low.
Yeah,
But
and their form, to be fair.
yeah, so Wolves are sitting at 14th with only 23 points from 21
Yeah.
games. I mean, I think unfortunately for them, again, it's a bit almost like the Callum Wilson type thing, but like a higher level where Jimenez getting injured has had such a big effect on their season.
Yeah.
And I think that him being out has really sort of nosedived their form. I think they'll be fine purely because the players they've got are at such better level than the teams below them.
Podence, who's now back from injury, Neto.
Yeah, they've just signed William Jose as well, who's quite an established sort of striker.
Although he wasn't very good the other day, I must admit.
I mean,
he wasn't. I feel like he didn't link with the players, but then he is new, so he may take a few games to settle him.
Yeah, I've never seen him play before, but then I guess you can't really say the language barrier should be an issue because he's Brazilian and half the Wolves team Portuguese.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that should be fine.
But that was their main issue. Having Fabio Silva was a very good player. Well, he is a very good player, but he's not first in quality yet for
Wolves.
Wolves.
He's like 18, so I mean,
18. It was his. I feel like it was his price tag that put him in the team. So it was like 30 mil or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, which I think it's good minutes for him to get, but it's unfair to expect that the whole output of the attack.
Well, it's the same with like Reece Williams at Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're both clearly half decent players, but to put them into those caliber of teams straight away,
and especially it's that thing of that it's always harder because in like Reece Williams' situation, he's replacing the best defender in the world. And then in Fabio Silva's instance, he's replacing Wolves' best player. Like it's not like you're just replacing a random fullback who's okay. So
Jimenez is expected back. I think the end of the season, and with where they've had injuries, I think they've obviously got Bolly back recently. They've got Podence came back recently. I feel like their team sort of coming back together. Where it sort of fell apart at one point, all the injuries, and then they're having to play youth. They are having senior players come back. So I feel like they're in bad form, but they're gonna find their form again. And they had to change. Last season, they were a back three, and they've had to try a back four, which when you actually watch them, I don't think it works as effectively.
Yes, that's quite a bit. It's a big system change, especially when it's like that's their only system. Like last season, they only ever played 3 at the back, so having to change
and then 2 wing backs. Yeah.
So I think if I'm being honest, I'd sort of do what you did for Burnley and give them a 0. I don't think there's any chance they actually go down, but it's just because of their position that I think they have to be sort of brought into this conversation.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would give 0. It would only if they didn't have their injuries. Like if the people haven't come back from their injuries, or if they hadn't recalled people from loan, then it might be obviously higher up. But I'd agree with 0.
That's fair enough. I mean, so now we've gone through all the teams. I think we'll give our predictions for which teams we think are going to get relegated. I mean, I'll let you go.
So what, like bottom 3? Or
yeah, just bottom 3. I think anything higher than that isn't necessary. I think we'll just do the 3 teams we think are going to go down. You can go first.
I should have. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think Sheffield United's definitely in there.
Yeah.
I think one of Fulham or West Brom will be in there. I'm going to go with West Brom just because I don't think their players are good enough.
Yep.
So Sheffield United, West Brom, and then I'm going to go with Brighton.
Oh, that's just quite interesting.
Yeah, I think their players ain't in form. They're not good defensively. They're not good attacking wise. They've got a lot of injuries. I feel like Fulham's better as a whole, so I'm going to have to go with Brighton, I think.
No, that's fair enough.
So,
I think, I mean, interestingly, I guess just got that notification that Brighton have just beaten Tottenham, but
beaten, yeah.
yeah. But anyway, my bottom three, I think I'm actually going to want to stay with the three in there. I mean, at the start of the season, I think when I first predicted the table, I thought those three would be the ones that would go down. So I'll try and
Yeah.
stick to my guns. I think.
Sheffield as well, Sheffield United.
Yeah, I had Sheffield United. I mean, I didn't have it in the order that they're in now. I had
Mm.
the order, I think, as Fulham bottom, West Brom 19th, and
Yeah.
Sheffield United 18th. But
Yeah.
I think it will probably stay like this. I think I do have a feeling that Burnley might come 17th. I don't know why, because they've got like a really solid defence. But I think I'll stick with Sheffield United bottom, West Brom. Actually, no, you know what? I think West Brom will come bottom, Sheffield United will come 19th, and Fulham will come 18th.
Oh, what's he? Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think Brighton will be 18th. I think
Yeah.
the
I just
bottom
feel like,
two. I think the bottom two will stay how they are. To be
yeah,
honest.
no, that's fair enough. I just feel like West Brom are going to fall apart this season. But anyway, that is that for the relegation video. We'll have to see at the end of the season whether we've talked a load of rubbish or whether it's actually looked intelligent. But
See how it actually ends up.
But anyway, for anyone listening, thank you for listening and watching this video. And we'll be back again with a new podcast hopefully soon.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it.
Bye.